Not numb like you're broken. Not calm like you've healed. But quiet in a way that feels unnatural. Things that used to hit you don't land anymore. Words bounce off. Loss doesn't shake you the way it used to. And you don't feel proud of it. You don't feel sad about it either. You just notice something cold settling in. That's the moment everyone misunderstands. They think you're losing your emotions. They think something's wrong with you. They think you're shutting down. They're wrong. This is not weakness. This is the mind switching modes. Because when pain keeps knocking and nothing changes, the system adapts. You don't get softer. You get precise. You stop explaining. You stop reacting. You stop hoping people will understand. And without realizing it, you become dangerous. Not loud. Not aggressive. Not chaotic. Dangerous because nothing reaches you anymore. Most people never reach this phase. They quit right before it. They distract themselves. They numb themselves with noise. They escape into comfort and call it self-care. Because staying conscious while everything hurts, that requires a different kind of strength. But you didn't escape. You stayed. And staying long enough changes you. Here's the part nobody prepares you for. When you stop feeling, you don't feel better. You feel empty. And empty is uncomfortable. There's no motivation high. No emotional fuel. Excitement pushing you forward. Just silence. And silence forces one question. Who are you without emotion driving you? Most people never answer that. They panic. They run back to stimulation. Back to validation. Back to people. Because emptiness exposes something terrifying. If you don't feel, then discipline is the only thing left. And discipline doesn't care how you feel. This is where the split happens. One side goes back to reacting, back to excuses, back to comfort. The other side stays, not because it feels good, but because there's nothing else to lean on. And when you stay long enough in that emptiness, something sharp forms. You start moving without motivation. You start acting without emotional permission. You start doing things because they need to be done, not because you feel ready. That's when people around you start noticing a change. You're quieter, harder to read, less interested in opinions. They say you've changed. They're right, but they think it's a bad thing. Let's be clear. You didn't lose empathy. You didn't become heartless. You lost dependency on emotion. And that's rare, because emotions make people predictable. Praise controls them. Criticism destabilizes them. Rejection breaks them. But when emotion stops being your driver, those levers stop working. You don't move faster. You move cleaner. No wasted energy. No unnecessary reactions. No emotional leaks. Just direction. This is why emotionally numb people scare others. Not because they're violent, because they're uncontrollable. You can't guilt them. You can't rush them. You can't bait them. They're not impulsive. They're intentional. And intention without emotional noise, that's power most people ever develop. But let me warn you, because this is important. This phase is not permanent comfort. It's a transition. If you don't learn how to use it, you either rot in emptiness or you sharpen into something lethal. And most people fail here. They think numbness is the end. It's not. It's the doorway. Why emotions disappear and why that's not a problem. Here's the truth most people avoid. You didn't stop feeling because you're broken. You stopped feeling because feeling stopped working. At some point, emotions failed you. Motivation didn't show up when it mattered. Hope didn't save you. Caring didn't change the outcome. You felt everything and still lost. So the mind made a decision you didn't consciously approve. It pulled the plug, not to punish you, to protect you. Understand this clearly. Emotions are tools, not virtues. They're useful when life is stable. They're useless when pressure becomes constant. When stress doesn't end. When disappointment stacks. When effort keeps going unrewarded. Emotion becomes a liability. So the system adapts. Just like pain numbs after repeated injury, your emotional response gets muted under long exposure. This isn't collapse. This is efficiency. But here's where people mislabel it. They call it depression. Depression is collapse. This is withdrawal of investment. Depression feels heavy. This feels empty. Depression drains energy. This conserves it. Depression traps you in your head. This pulls you out of emotional loops. Big difference. Another lie people tell you. You just need motivation again. Wrong. Motivation is a chemical reward system. It spikes when effort feels meaningful. But when meaning gets betrayed too many times, motivation shuts off. Not permanently. Selectively. It stops wasting fuel on unstable goals, people, and outcomes. Which is why right now, nothing excites you. And that scares people. Because they live off excitement. Here's the uncomfortable reality. Excitement makes people sloppy. Emotion makes people impulsive. Feeling-driven action creates inconsistency. You don't rise because you felt like it. You rise because you decided to move without permission. And that only happens after emotion steps aside. This phase removes illusions. You stop romanticizing effort. You stop expecting recognition. You stop assuming fairness. You don't think this should work. You think, what actually works? That shift alone puts you ahead of most people. Because most people negotiate with their feelings. You don't. But this emptiness creates a trap. And this is where many lose themselves. They try to feel again. They chase stimulation. They force social connection. They scroll. They drink. They distract. Because silence exposes something brutal. Without emotion, there's no excuse. No, I wasn't feeling it. No, I needed time. No, I wasn't ready. Just action or stagnation. And most people can't face that. You can. That's why you're still here. This phase exists to teach one thing: how to function without emotional dependency. To move when there's no reward. To work when there's no praise. To stay when nothing feels good. That's not depression. That's conditioning. And once this conditioning sets in, you don't become robotic. You become reliable. You don't spike high. You don't crash low. You stay steady under pressure. Which is why people who pass through this phase start feeling different. Harder to influence. Harder to distract. Harder to break. But here's the key warning. If you misunderstand this phase, you either rot in numbness, or you misuse it and turn bitter. Neither is power. Power comes from direction. And direction is what we're going to talk about next. The difference between numb and deadly. Here's the line most people have across. Numbness without structure turns into decay. Numbness with structure turns into dominance. Same emptiness. Completely different outcomes. This is where lives split. When emotion disappears, something has to replace it. Most people don't replace it with discipline. They replace it with distraction. They keep the emptiness and layer noise on top. That's how people rot slowly. But you're not here to rot. You're here to convert this phase. Structure is simple, but brutal. It doesn't care about your mood. It doesn't negotiate. It doesn't adjust. It's a set of actions you do regardless of internal state. No hype, no inspiration, no emotional reward, just execution. And here's the uncomfortable truth. Most people say they want discipline. What they really want is motivation that feels disciplined. That's not what this is. This phase exists because motivation is unreliable. Structure isn't. You wake up at the same time. You train at the same time. You work at the same time, not because it feels good, but because the decision was already made. Emotion is removed from the equation. That's why this phase feels cold. Cold is stable. This is why emotionally numb people become efficient. They don't overthink. They don't dramatize. They don't spiral. They execute. Not fast. Not flashy. Consistently. And consistency under pressure beats intensity fueled by emotion every time. Let's get something straight. This isn't about becoming emotionless. It's about not needing emotion to move. Big difference. You still feel pain. You still feel loss. You just don't let it vote. Feelings become background noise, not commands. Here's why this scares people around you. They can't read you anymore. They don't know if you're okay. They don't know if you're angry. They don't know how to influence you. You stop reacting the way you used to. And when people can't predict you, they lose control. That's why they'll say, you're cold. They're not describing you. They're describing their loss of access. Structure also removes one more weakness: waiting. Stop waiting to feel ready, waiting to feel confident, waiting to feel inspired. You move while empty. That's rare, and that's dangerous. But understand this. Structure without awareness becomes obsession. Obsession without awareness becomes destruction, which is why the next step matters. You don't just need discipline, you need focus. Because when emotion is gone and structure is in place, whatever you point at yourself at grows fast. And if that direction is wrong, you become powerful in the wrong direction. When emotion disappears and structure locks in, your environment becomes dangerous. Not because it's hostile, but because it's noisy. This is the phase where most progress gets sabotaged, not by failure,